obviously we all came here to make progress. I have high hopes. I was very encouraged by some of the comments earlier today. I think people are certainly talking urgently. Let's see what happens in the next days.
Now, in one of the first full day's major announcements, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi outlined a series of carbon-cutting commitments for the coming decades, with the goal of India reaching net zero by 2070.
Firstly, India will increase its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. Secondly, India will fulfill 50% of its energy requirements from renewable energy sources by 2030. Thirdly, between now and 2030, India will reduce its total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tonnes. Fourthly, by 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45%. And fifthly, by 2070, India will achieve the target of net zero emissions.
Right, I spoke with the Prime Minister of Sweden, Stefan Löfven, and asked him about his expectations for the negotiations.
We need to be optimistic, but it will take hard work to achieve what we need to achieve. But everybody knows we need to stick to 1.5 degrees. That's what we need to do.
And does everybody know that, sir? Because some nations don't seem willing to update their NDCs.
Well, everybody should. I mean, look around us. What's happening? UK. Yesterday, today, we see in Sweden, we see it all over the world, so there's no question what we need to do and make sure now that we can achieve what we want with the climate financing, but also the rules, Article 6.
And that's the question, sir. Is it the financing that's the biggest sticking point, going from the developed world to the emerging nations?
It is important, but it's not only that, but of course for us, more wealthier nations, to show that we can and we want to contribute, so that less wealthy nations can all do the same.
But we've been underwhelming so far, so 80 billion isn't 100 billion.
I know. I said it in New York weeks ago that it's up to do the math, how much we need to contribute. We've doubled our now, so I think more nations should do what they want.
Thank you.
Right, I also managed to catch up with the Greek Prime Minister, KYRIAKOS MITSOTAKIS, and asked him what role individual countries could play in combating climate change.
Greece is part of the European Union, so we've set ambitious goals in terms of reducing our greenhouse gases by 55% by 2030 and becoming climate neutral by 2050. And we'll be passing our first climate law, hopefully before the end of the year, to make sure that all this is also properly legislated.
But one thing you and I know is there are other crises out there, whether it be COVID, whether it be the crisis that you and I have talked about in Syntagma Square so many years ago as well. Is this the most preeminent crisis of all of them at the moment?
There's no doubt that this is an existential crisis for the whole planet, and of course for countries that are in the eastern Mediterranean. We saw what happened this summer with the horrible wildfires. So we know we need to act. We need to act both on the mitigation and on the adaptation side. We will be faced with natural catastrophes in the foreseeable future. That's why we created a Ministry of Climate Crisis and Civil Protection to make sure that we're better protected when the next natural disaster strikes us. At the same time, we need to look into the future. Greece can play a leading role on various fronts. Look at shipping, for example. We control 20% of global shipping. I want our ship owners to be in the front line of innovation surrounding shipping. We don't know what the solution will be, but we need to invest in alternative technologies now. We need to protect our islands. There's such unique habitats, and we have a vision of making sure that our islands become carbon neutral before the mainland. We have the capacity of doing that, especially with the smaller islands that don't require much energy consumption. We're looking at turning Greece into a regional energy hub. Look at, for example, what's happening in the Middle East and in North Africa. We can produce very cheap electricity from the sun, but it needs to be transported to Europe somehow. That is why we are going to construct an electricity interconnection with Egypt.